I don't have much of a message. I have a couple of questions. Questions regarding the problem that our economy is changing or has been changing since the last 20 years, but economics, our vision of what the economy is not changing. And what does that mean in terms of how we participate in one of the most important metabolic things of society, the economy? So strange title, you will see what I mean by that. So if you think of participation in the economy, you will feel that you don't have much word in making decisions on the firm level. Yeah, decisions in the economy are made on the firm level. Since most of us don't own a company, you won't be making decisions. You won't participate in decision processes where the decisions are made. So not many of us are CEOs or CFOs. How many percent can participate in these decision-making processes? Maybe 1%, or it's not 5%, I would say. It's way less than 5%. So now you could say the economy is not participatory. Now every economist would stand up and say, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. The economy is the most participatory thing that ever existed. And now a word about economics, 20th century economics. Customers participate in the economy through buying something or not buying something. They are taking the decisions more or less what is going to be produced and what is not going to be produced. They are deciding through the buying decisions, what is invented. They can communicate through institutions or through processes to the entrepreneurs of what goods and services they would like to have. The hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs will pick these ideas up and make a profit from realizing those ideas. So economists in the 20th century, like Joseph Schumpeter, they told this story that the consumer, all of us, we are co-creating the economy with the entrepreneurs. So super participatory, but yeah. Let's stay in the 20th century for a second. There has been an alternative way of doing economics in the 20th century, socialism, communism, which connects to what Dirk was saying in the first talk, a social planner. So that's a completely different type of allocating resources, of generating prices, generating wages, etc. A central planner is setting the prices. And in the Soviet Union, for example, there were 22 million prices that had to be fixed. Someone decided these prices. There were 550,000 wage categories, and you had to assign 110 million work quotas. Tell the people how much they had to work and how much they had to produce. If you see the economy as a computational device that computes somehow how we are optimally trying to use our resources that we have on the planet, then the central planner has to be very, very good in computing these optimal things. And here is where the Austrian economists come in. Austrian economist is basically Van Mises, one guy, who in the 1920s figured out that this computational problem cannot be done by a central planner. It's just the computational power is not there. There was a big debate. Americans were saying, they were proving theorems, American economists were proving theorems that there's nothing nothing a market economy can do that a social planner could not do. So a planner can do everything as well as a market economy, some theorems, yeah. So, and there was this debate that these Austrian economists said, no, yes, maybe right, maybe you're right, but you will never have the computational power for it. You're too slow for this, yeah. And this is the famous computational problem in the economy. You will see why I'm bringing up this 100-year-old debate here. Yeah. So what economists still would say today is that markets perform these computations, delocalized, decentralized, everyone taking care of profit possibilities, and through realizing these profits, we are allocating our resources more or less good, more or less well. This leads to equilibria, this leads to unique prices, and this leads to optimal resource allocation. This is textbook knowledge. Every economist is going to learn this in the first semester. If we have equilibria, of course we need big markets, big competition. We should not have monopolists or cartels or anything like this. We need unique prices. If you don't have unique prices, no one can guarantee that you're exploited, that you're paying too much for what you should have. Markets guarantee through the principle of competition that you as a consumer, as the participant, the whole thing, get the best price, in theory, of course. And compared to social planners, we have this optimality in resource allocation. Of course, we need some regulation. These pure three things is not enough. We need to defend markets against monopolies. We have to tax externalities. So this is all within the economic textbook knowledge. So, but if markets are getting smaller, as we might observe, less and less firms producing the same thing, less and less competition, there might no longer be equilibria forming. There might be monopolies forming. There might be systemic risk coming into the world. If unique prices are no longer there, what do I mean by unique price? A not unique price. So in earlier days, if you wanted to fly to Boston, you had to pay the price, a unique price, and it was the same for all of us. If you try to book a flight now, it depends where you book it from which type of computer. Depends maybe on your job, if you book it from a university or if you book it from somewhere else, and it depends how often you have looked on the web pages. If you press the same, if you ask for the same flight, the price will be higher on the next day. So prices are more and more personalized through a change in the economy. This high-tech economy. So we're getting personalized prices more and more. And optimal resource allocation, if you're one company, you want to do something, you want to produce something, you want to offer it to the world, can you do that without help of one of the tech giants? You no longer can. So there's no longer a free access to a forum, to visibility to your products, to the markets. It's biased. So this is a trend that's going on since 20 years, and it's in some economies it's more ahead than in others. Yeah. So let's come to my questions. If this is going away, if this unique prices and if this optimal resource allocation is going away, we're no longer living in a capitalist society. We all think we're living in a capitalist society with the rules that we have all learned and we agree with or not. But this is no longer a capitalist society. It's something else. It's also not a socialist society, certainly not. But someone is computing. The tech companies are computing. There's the computational problem is coming back. But is it coming back for the public good, or is it coming back for profit maximizing for these companies? Meaning a maximum of exploitations of the market participants. That's the questions I have. So if markets are tiny and very efficient, meaning very volatile, very non-resilient, shouldn't at least the public monitor the supply chains just to know how secure we are? We always think markets are so aggregate, so fully filled or densely populated that if something goes back, there's so much resilience in the system. Do we know how much resilience is there? No, we don't. If we don't have unique prices anymore, we are no longer guaranteed the best price. So we're open to exploitation. And if optimal resource allocation is no longer guaranteed by the system design of free markets, we can debate if this ever was true at all or not. But shouldn't the public again monitor if we are allocating our resources efficiently or not? And I'm saying yes. We should at least monitor what is happening. And for monitoring, how do you monitor an economy? We're trying to do steps in that direction. In principle, we can, with data that we get more and more available, we can reconstruct supply chains of entire nations. We can try to figure out how individual companies are producing their goods. We can estimate their production functions. We can observe prices. That's a very, very hard task to do. And we can, if we have time resolved data, we can learn about how the economic networks are restructuring over time. So this is just a proof that these networks are becoming available. This is the supply chain. It's not a chain, of course, it's a supply network of the economy of Hungary. 100,000 companies, that's the dots, and there's about 1 million lines. These are the individual supply relations, one payment. We only see the payments between two companies in tax data. If you zoom in, this is what you see. Dots are the companies, and there's little arrows telling you how much is going from one company to the other. This is money. They're weighted. The time resolution is a month. We know the name of the company. We should not use that. Peter Klimek is trying to infer now from the name of the company what they're doing. Also from the information that he can find on the internet, on the common crawl, on the history of the internet, he's trying to find out what these companies offered in the last 10 years. You know, also ownership networks is a thing that you can overlay with a huge tail of problems attached to.
It's not like probably it's just like one single like month of data.
Yes, but for 10 years.
Okay.
So it's fantastic, and I would say a dozen of countries have this data available in one form or the other, and a few of these data sets are being analyzed or are made available for science. So yeah, I don't go into this. If you don't have, I skip all of this. You can go one level down. You can look at the level of products. And something that we're doing here at the Complexity Science Hub is to reconstruct food product supply chains, to monitor them. And that's one example that really works. For pork meat, we have the full supply chain from where the little pig is produced in the uterus of the mother pig until the said end in the supermarket. We have the entire supply chain. The network, the supply network looks like this, 30,000 actors involved. And we also have a time resolution of about one day. So ministries are providing data for the mobility of the pigs, and the big food wholesalers, the big food distributors, they upload their data, what product, where they buy, from whom, and where they store it, and to which supermarket they bring it. So we have a collaboration of public and industry to produce this. What do we do with this network? We put this into a monitor, and in this monitor we see the map, the 40,000 producers, and we can click on every of these producers and see what would happen if you don't intervene somehow. So we can play things like introducing the African swine flu and see if you close down an area of the country, how that would play down to availability of calories. And so the ministry now wants us to do this for all food products. That's what we're doing. It's one way of monitoring things on the individual product. Peter Klimek is also trying to do the same thing for medication. Europe has planned this anyhow, it's just nowhere implemented, but every little product, every package of a medication has a unique code and is being able to be tracked. And it's not tracked yet, but all the technology and the labels is already there. Another topic is how to infer the production function of companies. Huge problem. But if we get to a situation where we see the networks, we have an estimate of production functions, we could really see where is wealth generated, where are prices being formed. So now in inflationary times, who is raising prices, and is this justified because the prices of the input products rise, or is it, in German, Gierflation? What is the English word for greedflation? If we know which companies use what raw materials or labor, etc., we can get a feeling of how optimal resources are actually allocated. So we can do the backward computation to see, is this really kind of optimal where we're going, or is this just all nudged, driven by some interests, but not the consumer's interests? Now I'm seeing that we're grossly over time. I don't show you how we measure the resilience of, I show you, one word. If we have such a monitor of the economy, as we have it for Hungary, for example, we can ask questions of systemic risk. We can take out any company of the system and ask, how much does the total production of the country go down? That is a systemic number for every firm. And we find in Hungary about 20 firms on this plateau, so individual companies, dots here, that if you take out one of these, the economic production goes down 25%. So these are highly systemic firms. They're all connected with each other in a core. Then there's about 100 firms that if you have an effect of more than 1% reduction of the output, and then 100,000 companies are practically irrelevant or systemically irrelevant. Here's a picture of this food monitor that we actually built. It's actually installed in the ministry. So if you kill, what happened now? So if you kill this company, if you click it on it, or if you close it, how much is the total pork production going down? 3.7% in the whole country. And here's all the supermarkets that are affected, and you see how much percent of calories is going down. We can monitor the global flows of systemic risk. That's a very sad story. If you ask what is happening in country B, if certain, what is happening to firms in country B, if something happens to companies in country A? How is systemic risk spreading from one country to another? The preliminary result of the story is that the poorer a country, the more systemic risk it's importing. So the poorer they are, the more the rich countries put the systemically critical parts there. So very short. How you see this is that in this band, rich countries, this is Europe, is exporting systemic risk to practically all the rest of the world. And one last example that a student of ours did. How could we use such an atomistic view of the economy for planning the green transition? I give you it's intended to be fun, don't take it too seriously. Imagine that Greta is the president of the EU. We know there is no president of the EU. And imagine she would do a law. By next year, we would like to reduce CO2 emissions by 30%. That's the goal. No politicians will ever do such a thing. We put the goals in 30 years into the future, 50 years into the future, not next year. But Greta is tough. Next year, 30%. You have to reduce emissions very quickly. How do you do that? You have to incentivize companies to do that. And since it has to be quick, you have to force them. You have to shut companies down. It's the strongest incentive you can give to shut down things. But if you shut down companies, you're producing social stress. And how much social stress is produced if you're shutting down a particular company? That's the number that we computed before. If you know the position of every company, if you know how many people work in every company, which we also know for Hungary, then we can compute if this company would close down, it loses all of its workers, but also all the workers that up and downward the supply chain are affected. So even small companies can have huge systemic relevance. So this systemic relevance factor is a proxy for the social stress. And then we can plot the social stress on the x-axis. Every dot is a company, and the CO2 emissions on the y-axis. And then give Greta some better advice. Would she close down a company that is a big emitter, like this one to the right, with huge social stress? No, she would not. But she should close down these big emitters that have no social relevance. So we could give her an order, and that's the order: CO2 emissions per social stress unit produced. In this order, she should close down the companies. And this is the result. If she does this, here's the number of companies she has to close down. The red curve is the CO2 reductions achieved by closing these firms down. So she has to close down, I don't know, about 60 companies to reach the 30% goal. And the blue curve is the social stress in units of jobless. So this measure would create 5% increase of jobless. Okay, if you compare this, if Greta would go and say, let's shut down the biggest emitters first, the steel company, cement company, paper company, then she would do that. She would only have to close down 20 companies to achieve the goal of 30% reduction, but she would have, I don't know, 30% jobless rates, which would be a civil war usually. And yeah, I leave it with this. We should have lunch.